Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Adam J. Pestridge, and this is the second part, Flight Simulation. Microsoft Flight Simulator just came out, and it's brought a bigger community to Flight Simulator community, which has naturally been sort of the FSX, X-Plane, P3D sort of community. Now we've got Microsoft Flight Sim, and it's available on Game Pass, it's available on Steam. It's brought in a larger crowd to the community, and from what I've witnessed, both in streams, in videos, you know, everyone's having a lot of performance issues. Everyone's having real major problems with their sim. And basically, this video, I'm going to go through, right, there is a correct way to flight sim, as it were, and we're going to go through all the tweaks that you'll need to apply to your PC and your graphics card and your monitor in order to get a smooth flight experience no matter what the weather's doing, or what airport you're sat at. I know a lot of people are having like low frame rates or stutters or issues, and I've seen videos give the wrong information out. You follow my guide and you will have a smooth flight no matter where you fly and no matter what the weather's doing. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I play a lot of flight simulation, you know, and, you know, I've been doing it since the year 2000 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2000, and then I got 2004, and then I got FSX, and now I'm on P3D myself. I do prefer that for commercial flight simming. It's much better. It has a lot more options to it. Microsoft Flight Simulator has only just started, so it's kind of still finding its feet, but there's still a lot you can do to not only your PC, but to your graphics card in order to get the best performance, and that's exactly what we're going to go through today. Okay, so there's a few like overclocks, there's a few performance system tweaks that you can apply, and a lot of this we're going to get into right now. In fact, there is a list down in the description box below of processes that you can actually nail in your Windows system that really are going to hinder your experience more than anything. You know, yeah, I've disabled pretty much everything in that list down below just to get flight simulation running smooth. And it's not like if you don't do this, it won't work, okay? But if you do this, your PC is going to be streamlined for flight simulation. And that's really what you do need, is a PC that is for flight simulation, and then a PC maybe for gaming or whatever. But if you haven't got that, seriously, follow this list. You know, the list is down below, and that's your first port of call, basically, is your operating system, you know? Basically, Windows 10 is very good, you know, in optimizing itself, but also it has a lot of versatility in what you can do to it as well. And for me, it's my preferred operating system for flight simulation. If you're still on Windows 7 or 8, I would suggest heavily your first step is to update to Windows 10. And now there is no massive difference between Windows 10 Pro, you know, or Windows Home. I have the Home Edition, and there's no performance gain for getting the Pro Edition. It's a 64-bit operating system, but it's got so much better boot times than 7 and 8. And it's basically better for performance as well for gaming, you know, although that's very minor, you know. But the most important thing is that it's supported by DirectX 12, you know. Even though Microsoft Flight Simulator is still a DirectX 11 flight sim, it's support for DirectX 12, and DirectX 12 is really good for performance. And I dare say that when Asobo, if they decide to move Flight Simulator over to DirectX 12, that you'll see that performance gain again in the simulator. P3D version 5 is DirectX 12 as well. So yeah, basically Windows 10 Home is your first port of call. Second port of call is make sure all your drivers are up to date. Make sure you know you have your graphics card driver up to date and the Windows system itself up to date, which I'm going to show you exactly now how you can do that. So basically, you want to go down into the bottom right corner here, Windows 10, click on this, click on all settings, okay, and this will flash up Windows settings, okay. And if you go to update and security and you go to Windows update, you will have here, and you can actually update it. Now, when you're doing a flight in a flight simulator, you want to pause your updates for 7 days, because basically you could have your simulator suddenly needing to update or restart, and you're on a final approach to an airport. That's not going to work. Also, when it's downloading updates, if you're simming, you're going to get stutters, basically because it's using the system power. So always pause your updates when you do a flight, and have the latest updates through here. Now, sometimes these updates can actually have a negative effect on flight simulation. There is a way you can actually change that. If you go to view update history and then you go to uninstall updates, you will get a list here of all the updates, and if you order them by when they were installed on, you'll find the most recent ones here, and you can literally uninstall if you actually find that this particular update is no good for your flight simulator. If it causes stutters, you can actually get rid of it, and it's super helpful. But definitely, you know, update and security, your Windows update, make sure it's always updated and paused when you're actually flying in the sim. The second thing is, apart from the Windows updates, is your graphics card updates. Make sure that they are up to date. Now, I have an Nvidia graphics card. I've never used AMD, so I don't know how you would, sort that out. But when you download and install your graphics card, it asks you to install Geforce Experience as well. I highly recommend to installing that, because that way you can update your graphics card easier, rather than having to go to the website and all this. But not only that, is you can either choose between the studio driver or the game driver, and you want to choose the game driver. And whenever you update it, obviously you update, but you only update the components that are different. So let's say the three main components when you update your graphics card is the graphics driver, the audio driver, and then the PhysX system within the sim, or within the driver, sorry. Now, I only update what actually has changed. So if there's been no change in the audio driver, I don't update it. There's no need to. Same with the PhysX. Obviously, your driver is going to update. You can't get away from that. But if your audio driver hasn't updated, there's no point in reinstalling it, really. It doesn't really do any favors. So I don't do that. But make sure your stuff is up to date. I'm going to put links down below for AMD and Nvidia cards, where you can get your drivers from. And like I said, Nvidia is great because it has a menu system that we're going to go through later on how you can precisely fine-tune not only your system but your application for Flight Simulator as well. And I'm going to show you exactly which key features to enable. And if you ever have to uninstall, I highly recommend DDU to uninstall safely your graphics card driver and then reinstall the new one. Again, I'll put a link down to that below. Now, there is another way to save on performance, and that basically is turning off your focus assist, okay? Again, it's down in here and clicking all settings, and it brings you up to this screen. And then once you're on this screen, you basically go to system and the focus assist, and make sure it's turned off. All of these are turned off, and you put alarms only here. And basically that's going to hide all notifications except for alarms, but you're not going to be alerted at all during anything, and so you won't have suddenly pop-ups appear on the side, which can either be A, super distracting, or B, can also take away performance from your PC as well, and so take away performance from your simulator. Now, there is another option you can do with power settings, and if you bring up the classic control panel and you went to power, which I believe is in hardware and sound, there is another option you can do here for fine-tuning your performance of your PC, and you can have it set to high performance. But I'm not actually going to show you that, because I actually use something called Process Lasso, and this is absolutely beautiful at fine-tuning things. Like, for instance, as you can see, I'm running OBS at the moment. You can actually set not only which CPU core that OBS is going to run on, you know, but you can also set how much of the power of the PC it's going to use. And so therefore you're never going to have a place where the power unit on your machine is going to suddenly cut out because you've got too much stuff running off it. You can fine tune that here, and this is much better than doing it in the Windows panel here. But if you haven't got Process Lasso, just click High Performance, and your system is now tuned for better performance of the hardware, you know, the graphics card, the CPU, the memory. And that's basically, you're getting every ounce of performance out of your system. But I really highly recommend Process Lasso. I'm going to do a separate video on this, on how to utilize this for flight simulation, because this really requires a separate video to go into the depths of it. But this, I mean, truly get this. It is really good. Super good. Right, so moving on, the next thing. Again, back in control panel, if you bring up this and you bring up the mouse, which I believe is under hardware and sound, you go to mouse, click the mouse, and you have this pop up here. If you go to pointer options, okay, you want to turn off enhanced pointer precision, because basically what that does is it again takes away a little bit of performance from your PC. You can actually set the speed yourself rather than have the PC do it itself. That is super helpful. Like in terms of saving a little bit of performance, that is a really good tip. Also, hide pointer while typing. You know, there's nothing worse than your mouse being in the way when you're trying to write something. So disabling the mouse acceleration will, honestly, I mean, the amount of people that don't actually have this activated or deactivated, seriously, it needs to be turned off for gaming, as you probably are aware, but for flight simulation, definitely need it turning off. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the Nvidia graphics card settings. So bringing up your graphics card down here, the Nvidia settings in the control panel brings up the actual control panel to your graphics card. And here it is. Now, if you go to Manage 3D Settings and copy these settings here, sharpening off, ambient occlusion off, I mean, a lot of this stuff is basically turned off, except for power management mode. Now, global settings, this is for when your PC is not running one of these program settings apps. So as you can see, I've got this set for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and there's a whole bunch of settings here which are specific to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, global settings are basically when you're not running any of the programs in here. So this is what happens to your PC. I have basically a lot of this turned off, but for power management mode, I actually have it set for optimal power. So basically what that means is the graphics card specifically is the power that's sent to it is up and down depending on the load of what I'm doing. As you know, we already set it to high power in the Windows operating system. So this is basically making the best use of your graphics card's life extension. If you're max running this thing at always high power, you're going to wear out your graphics card a lot quicker. Setting this to optimal power, you know, has some downtime moments to it, and it's basically when you're not flight simming, it's going to be on a different power setting. So rather than having to swap them out constantly in the Windows mode, you can actually set it here, and when you're not flight simming, your graphics card is basically going to give your PC is going to give power to your graphics card when it needs to, okay? And that's basically probably when you're running videos or stuff like that, but it's not always going to be there. A lot of this stuff is turned on or off, but for texture filtering, again, high performance, I find that having this setting in global settings actually increases frame rates in games. I actually find that this, you know, gives better performance, you know, in my flight sim when it's set to high performance, as opposed to high quality. Now I'm doing a little experiment myself, because in the program settings under Flight Simulator, I've actually set it to high performance. In my usual P3D, it's set to high quality. So I'm just doing a little experiment to see which one is actually, you know, going to make a massive difference there. Any changes, just click apply, and once you say you've copied these settings down in global, you know, then basically you can move on. And in program settings, this is the Microsoft Flight Simulator one I have. A lot of this is application controlled, you know, but the one thing, main difference, is I have my max frame rate set to 30. Okay, and you're thinking, why does he do that? Well, if you go to resolution here, I actually have a refresh rate of 30 Hertz. Now, that's not the refresh rate of my monitor. My monitor is actually a 60 Hertz monitor, you know, so if I was to click this, it actually shows 60. I mean, it says 59, but it should be 60 to be honest. But to be honest, my PC, when it's running a flight simulator, basically in really high hurricane weather, cannot maintain 60 frames, you know, at the same quality level that I want, but it can maintain 30. Now, 30 frames is more cinematic and looks more realistic to me than 60. 60 is just too sharp and too finessed, you know. 30, it looks a little bit like I'm watching a film, you know. There is a massive difference, and locking your frame rate to 30 is a lot more better on your PC hardware than having it try and maintain 60. Now, if you're a streamer and you run OBS, if you set your OBS to 60, basically OBS doubles the frame rate, and so you can output at 60 but only have your hardware need to do half that work, which means the rest of the power of your PC goes into the scenery loading. You know, you don't have to worry about it, you know, stuttering or being blurry. It will load fast, you know. So basically, there are my settings. Another one is adjust desktop size and position. Make sure override the scaling mode is ticked. You don't want games overriding what you've already set. And back in the update here, we want to basically, if you go to a home and go to, I believe it's updates, delivery optimization, make sure it's turned off. Okay, because again, you don't want, if you've got multiple PCs on your network, you don't want suddenly the power of your PC resources to be diverted to sending updates to other PCs as well. So, or them sending updates to you. So turn all that off. That's basically it. If you have OneDrive in your PC, turn that off as well. OneDrive is another performance killer for flight simulation. If that's running, it's doing stuff in the background, and any process that's doing stuff in the background is a massive performance killer in terms of your flight sim. Now, this is probably the next thing I want to show you is probably the best tweak you'll find for your PC and give you the biggest performance hit, or sorry, the biggest performance boost, which nobody ever really talks about. But if you go to hardware and sound, oh, sorry, if you go to system and security and you go to system and you click on advanced system settings, oh, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? If you look here, there's a section actually that talks all about performance. Clicking on the settings tab brings up visual effects, and you can actually choose if you have it best for appearance or best for performance. Well, I'm so glad there's a custom option. I have basically only 3 things ticked: smooth edges of screen fonts, show thumbnails instead of icons, and enable peak. And honestly, the thumbnails one you can probably get away with removing as well, but this will give you the biggest performance boost on your PC out of all of them. You will notice a big difference. Therefore, your simulator is going to run smoother. The next thing is under the advanced tab, make sure you've got your best performance ticked to programs and not the background services. There are a lot of background services, and we're going to go through a list in a moment, that you can actually stop from running or delete off your system. But make sure that whatever program you're running, i.e. your flight simulator, is that it's adjusted for best performance of that. You don't have to worry too much, because as I say, if you got process lasso, you can process schedule. Your processor scheduling can be handled by that as well. The next thing is your virtual memory. So you want to untick automatically managing paging file size, and you want to click system managed size and click set. And once you click OK, it's going to say you've got to restart your PC for all this to take place. That's okay. Obviously, we don't want to restart a PC now, but make sure you do restart your PC for those changes to take place. Now, a lot of people probably say, well, you know, I set my own file sizing page thing, and that's fine. but for an SSD drive, it's unneeded. You don't need to. The recommended setting is system managed 1 rather than what is ticked there. The next big performance, as I said, is your visual effects. Done that. But having an SSD is super critical to achieving smooth flight. Even having an M2 drive is your better option. You know, wherever your simulator and your operating system are sitting on, make sure they're both sitting on an SSD or M2 drives. Ideally an M2 drive, but secondly an SSD drive. It's honestly, it's super important to have an SSD drive as opposed to a HD drive. Now, if you haven't got an SSD drive and you haven't got the money to upgrade for it, there is something you can do by getting this program here called Ultimate Defrag 6. Now, it's, oh hello, I need to register my copy. I'll do that later. Basically, this was created by somebody in the flight simulator community who now works for Mega Scenery Earth, who is a developer for flight simulation. And this basically defrags your hard drive, but it does so in such a customizable way that you can really decide where things go. And in fact, this is basically my D drive. And as you can see, there's a lot of information right around the outside tracks that is used, and there's a lot of free space around the inside. Now, placing information specifically for flight simulation around the outside tracks of your hard drive disk is where you want to be placing it, because it's quicker times in recalling that information than it is if it's placed around the center tracks. It actually takes longer time for the little needle reader to scan all the way down into the center to pick up the information to return it to your hard drive. It's much quicker when it's here. It can access it so much quicker. So make sure when you're defragging your drive, you can actually customize where file folders or specific files can be put or placed on your drive. Now, the first time you do this, it's going to take a while. It took me 3 days, but every time after that, it won't take as long. And it even tells you, you know, do you need to be doing it? Is it worth your time? Like, how fragmented is this drive? Doing it, I'd say once every 2 to 3 months is advisable, but the more you do it, the more you wear out your hard drive. So just like, don't go crazy and do it every single day. But it really does improve your HD drive performance as well. Now, the next thing is services. So going to Task Manager, right clicking on the bar and bringing up the Task Manager, you'll bring up your list of services here. Now, there is a load of services you can actually stop or even delete off your system. And I'm going to put a list down below. I'm not going to go through every single one, but there is a list down below that all the ones that I've actually disabled on my PC. But remember, you do so at your own risk. Okay, if you're not sure what it does, then don't do it. But everything that I have actually disabled, right, is for me safe to do, and there's been no issue with my Windows PC at all. But it really does help with performance gain when all these services are not running in the background. And some of these you don't even need. There's like a fax machine one on here somewhere. Can't remember where it is, but there's one that basically is for your fax machine, and it's like, dude, you don't even need to be running that. You don't need to be running that. There is a couple of other ones, but I have yet to test these, but it's more to do with data mining. Okay, so there is a and again, I'll put a link down below, but there is an actual app you can get which basically removes all the data mining things from your PC. So basically websites where they're trying to fish for your details, it removes all that stuff. I've yet to test this, so I don't want to even show you what the app is, but I'll put a link into where you can actually read about it. It's supposedly supposed to be super helpful for optimizing your performance again, but yeah, I can't recommend something I haven't tried. Next thing is your graphics card. I use an overclocker for my graphics card, and this is the one that I use, and it's literally a case of just click, and now it's going to start overclocking it, but only when it's required to. It doesn't just suddenly ramp it up to whatever, but it manages the temperature and it manages the core count and the speed that it runs at, and this thing will go up to like 5,000 if it needs to. Right now it's sitting idling at like 810, and that's because I have optimal power put in the options of my graphics card. When my flight sim runs up, this goes up to about 5,000, and honestly, you do notice a difference in your frame rate for overclocking your graphics card. But remember, just be careful. Some simulators don't like graphics card to be overclocked, and it will crash your game, and that's the reason why P3D version 5 crashes a lot. But also, it will shorten the lifespan of your graphics card as well. So please look into it first before applying it. Read up so much more about it. It's very finicky, but it is beneficial. You do so at your own risk, remember. But yeah, definitely, you know, I would recommend doing it. CPU is a little bit different. I only would recommend doing it if you know exactly what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, I definitely wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. It's very, very finicky. Even more so than you know, the GPU. The CPU, I would say, just if an expert does it, then that's fine. But yeah. That's basically it for the tweaks of your PC. You know, doing all these tweaks. Oh yeah, one more, gaming. So if you're flying in the Microsoft Flight Sim, make sure your game mode is turned on. But if you're flying in P3D or X-Plane, make sure it's turned off. Also, make sure that the, capture DVR game bar is turned off, so you're not recording anything, because if it's turned on, it will automatically start recording stuff. Also turn off captures background recording for audio. Make sure all this is turned off. You don't want things happening. Game mode, if you're using the Microsoft Flight Sim, make sure it's turned on. But if you're using anything else, make sure it's turned off. And that's it, folks. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.